You're sitting in a grocery store parking lot with the engine still running. The bags are in the trunk. Your coffee has gone cold. You were supposed to be home 15 minutes ago, but your phone rings before you can pull out. It's your father. He's holding a medical bill he doesn't understand. He's convinced the insurance company made a mistake, but he can't remember whether he already called them. He reads you the same number 3 times. You ask him to take a picture of the bill, knowing he'll probably photograph the envelope instead. You keep your voice calm. You tell him you'll look at it tonight. Before the call ends, a text appears from your adult daughter. Her rent is going up. She's already stressed about work, childcare, and a relationship that may or may not survive the month. She doesn't directly ask you for money. She just explains the situation in enough detail for you to understand what she needs. You tell her you'll call after dinner. Then you put the phone down, take a breath, and drive home as if nothing unusual happened. To everyone else, you look capable. Your parents say, "You've always been the responsible one." Your children assume you'll know what to do. Your siblings may believe you're simply better at handling these things. Your friends admire how much you manage without falling apart. And maybe you even admire that about yourself. You solve the problem. You make the call. You find the missing document. You transfer the money. You schedule the appointment. You calm everyone down. You handle it. But almost no one asks what it costs to remain the person who cannot fall apart because too many other people are leaning on them. And here's the part that can be difficult to recognize. Your calmness does not always mean you feel secure. Sometimes calmness means you have become extremely skilled at postponing your own reaction. You don't feel overwhelmed when the crisis happens. You become efficient, you make lists, you open your laptop, you start comparing options, you go into problem-solving mode. The distress arrives later. It shows up as irritation over something small, as waking up at 3:17 in the morning with your mind reviewing medical appointments, mortgage payments, college debt, prescription refills, and whether your son sounded depressed when he called. It appears as exhaustion that sleep doesn't seem to fix, or as a strange numbness when someone asks how you're doing. "I'm fine," you say, and technically you are. You are functioning. But functioning and feeling safe are not the same thing. This is the psychological tension many Generation X adults now find themselves living inside. On one side are adult children who may be legally independent, but still need emotional, practical, or financial support. They may be dealing with unstable work, expensive housing, student loans, childcare, divorce, loneliness, or the general confusion of trying to build an adult life in conditions that feel less predictable than expected. On the other side are aging parents who may be losing strength, mobility, memory, confidence, or independence. And in the middle is the person everyone calls. You become the translator between your father and the healthcare system, the mediator between your mother and your siblings, the backup plan when your child's car breaks down, the emergency contact, the person who remembers passwords, medications, due dates, insurance policies, family history, and which version of the truth each relative can emotionally tolerate. You are not only managing tasks, you are managing people's fear. That creates a kind of mental weight that is difficult to measure because much of it is invisible. A medical appointment is not just an appointment. It includes transportation, paperwork, questions for the doctor, the possibility of bad news, and the emotional preparation required to stay composed if that news arrives. Helping an adult child is not just sending money. It may include wondering whether the help is truly temporary, whether you are delaying their independence, whether refusing would damage the relationship, and whether saying yes will damage your own financial future. Every responsibility contains several hidden responsibilities, and because you often complete them successfully, the people around you may not see the load. They see the result. The bill gets handled, the crisis passes, the family continues. So the expectation grows. The better you become at carrying things, the more naturally everyone assumes you can carry the next thing too. But where did that expectation of competence begin? For many Gen X adults, the answer reaches back decades. Again, this does not mean every person from one generation had the same childhood. Generations are not personalities, and no single story can explain millions of people. But many Gen Xers grew up with a strong expectation of self-management. You came home from school and let yourself into the house. You made something to eat. You entertained yourself. You solved minor problems without immediately calling an adult. Maybe your parents were working. Maybe they believed independence was good for you. Maybe emotional conversations were simply not part of the family culture. You learned to wait. You learned not to make a big deal out of discomfort. You learned that adults had problems of their own. And for some people, that independence created genuine confidence. When you solve problems repeatedly, your mind develops what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief that you can deal with difficult situations. In ordinary language, it is the feeling that says, "This may be hard, but I'll figure it out." That belief is real strength. It grows from experience. You got lost and found your way. You made mistakes and recovered. You handled disappointment without someone immediately rescuing you. You learned that discomfort was survivable. This kind of self-reliance can make a person flexible, resourceful, and calm under pressure. But the same outward behavior can come from a very different place. Some children did not become independent because they were gradually trusted with responsibility. They became independent because help was inconsistent, emotionally expensive, or unavailable. Maybe asking for help led to criticism. Maybe a parent became overwhelmed when you had a problem. Maybe you received assistance, but only after being made to feel guilty for needing it. Maybe the adults around you were physically present but emotionally unpredictable. You never knew whether your need would be met with patience, frustration, silence, or a lecture about how much harder everyone else had it. So you adjusted. You stopped asking. You learned to solve the problem before anyone noticed you had one. And over time, that strategy may have become part of your personality. From the outside, both people look competent. But inside, one person thinks, "I can handle difficult things." The other thinks, "I have to handle everything myself." That difference changes everything. Healthy confidence gives you options. Defensive self-reliance removes them. Imagine two adults coordinating care for an aging mother. Both are organized. Both understand the medications. Both keep notes during medical appointments and make sure the follow-up visits are scheduled. The first person asks siblings to take specific responsibilities. When a plan changes, they become frustrated but adjust. They can admit when they don't understand something. They can accept help even if it is not offered exactly the way they would have done it. The second person also appears highly capable, but they check every detail repeatedly. They redo tasks someone else has completed. They say that asking siblings is more trouble than doing everything alone. They refuse help, then become furious that no one helps. They feel resentful when relatives assume they are in charge, but anxious when anyone else takes control. Their competence is not fake. They really are capable. But competence has also become the way they regulate anxiety. Taking charge creates immediate relief. When you control the appointment, the payment, the schedule, or the conversation, uncertainty decreases. You no longer have to wonder whether someone else will remember, whether they will make the right decision, or whether the situation will get worse. Control feels safer than trust, and because taking over reduces anxiety in the moment, the mind learns to repeat it. You step in faster next time. Eventually, responsibility stops being something you do. It becomes who you are. Every family has roles, even when no one officially assigns them. There is the emotional one, the difficult one, the one who disappears when things become complicated, the peacemaker, and then there is the reliable one. The reliable one receives a very particular kind of praise. "You're so strong. I don't know what we'd do without you. You always know how to fix things." Those words can feel loving. They can also create a quiet contract. You are valued because you are useful. You belong because you stabilize the room. You receive respect when you remain controlled, productive, and available. So what happens when you are not useful? What happens when you need something? For a person who built their identity around competence, receiving care can feel strangely uncomfortable. You may want someone to notice you are overwhelmed but reject the help when it comes. You may wish your siblings would step up but criticize the way they do things. You may want your adult child to become more independent but rush in the moment they begin to struggle. You may tell everyone you're exhausted while continuing to say yes to every request. This is not necessarily hypocrisy, it is ambivalence. Part of you wants relief. Another part fears what relief would require. Because allowing someone else to help means admitting you have limits. It means tolerating the possibility that they will do the task differently. It may mean watching someone you love make a mistake you could have prevented. And perhaps most unsettling of all, it means discovering who you are when you are not the person saving the day. Being needed can become a source of identity. It can also provide purpose during a stage of life filled with loss and transition. Your children no longer need you in the same ways they once did. They have private lives, adult relationships, and decisions you do not control. Your parents, once the unquestioned adults in the family, may now look to you for guidance. The structure of the family is reversing. That reversal carries grief. Helping an adult child can delay the painful recognition that you are no longer at the center of their life. Managing an aging parent's care can keep you focused on paperwork instead of what the paperwork represents. A stack of insurance forms is easier to confront than your father's vulnerability. A medication schedule is easier to organize than the realization that your mother is becoming someone who needs supervision. Practical action gives the mind somewhere to go. You cannot stop time. You cannot guarantee your child's happiness. You cannot negotiate with mortality. But you can make a phone call. You can update the spreadsheet. You can find a specialist. You can clean the house, refill the prescription, research assisted living, review the lease, or send the money. Action gives shape to helplessness. And this is why caregiving can be both love and avoidance at the same time. You may be doing these things because you care deeply. You may also be doing them because action protects you from emotions you do not yet know how to feel. Those truths do not cancel each other. Not every person who takes on extra responsibility is trapped in a psychological defense. Sometimes families require unequal effort. Sometimes one sibling lives closer. Sometimes one person has more flexibility, more knowledge, or a better relationship with the parent. Sometimes an adult child genuinely needs support during a difficult season. Interdependence is not failure. Human beings are not supposed to live as isolated units who never need one another. The important question is not simply how much you do. The important question is whether you still have a choice. Can you say no without feeling like a bad person? Can you ask someone else to participate without spending the next 3 days correcting them? Can you let an adult child face a manageable consequence without treating their discomfort as an emergency? Can you admit that you are tired before your body forces the admission? Healthy support helps another person without completely replacing their agency. Overfunctioning begins when you consistently assume responsibilities that other people could carry, partly because watching them struggle feels unbearable. Your son forgets a deadline, so you begin tracking it for him. Your daughter is anxious about a difficult conversation, so you script every sentence and then text repeatedly to make sure she followed through. Your father becomes confused by an account, so you quietly take control of every financial decision rather than finding the smallest level of support that still allows him dignity. At first, taking over seems efficient. The problem gets solved faster, the conflict is avoided, the anxiety drops. But something else happens. The people around you receive less practice tolerating frustration, solving problems, and living with consequences, and you receive more evidence that nothing works unless you do it. The pattern reinforces itself. They become less confident, you become more necessary, then you resent them for needing you. That resentment can be difficult to admit, especially when the people involved are aging parents or struggling children. You love them. You know their problems are real. You understand that they are not trying to ruin your life. So when anger appears, you judge yourself. You tell yourself to be grateful. You remind yourself that other families have it worse. You push the feeling down, but suppressed emotions rarely disappear. They usually change form. Resentment may sound like a sharp tone over a harmless question. It may look like becoming furious because your mother called during dinner, even though the call lasted only 2 minutes. It may appear when your child asks for one small favor and you react as though they demanded your entire future. The request is not always what hurts. What hurts is the assumption underneath it. The assumption that your time is flexible, that your money is available, that your energy will renew itself, that you will absorb the inconvenience because you always have. Resentment does not automatically mean you are selfish or uncaring. Sometimes resentment is information. It may be the mind's way of saying that an arrangement once accepted freely has become an obligation no one is allowed to question. It may be evidence that you are giving more than you can give without losing contact with yourself. And that is the deeper danger. Not simply exhaustion, self-erasure. A person can become so identified with being useful that their own desires begin to feel irrelevant. Someone asks what you want to do over the next 5 years. You immediately think about whether your parents will still be living independently. You think about your child's career, your grandchild's needs, the cost of healthcare, and whether retirement is financially realistic. You can describe everyone else's future in detail, but when the question turns toward you, there is a pause. What do you want that is not connected to solving someone else's problem? What do you enjoy when no one needs anything? What relationship, interest, ambition, or part of yourself has been postponed because there was always a more urgent responsibility? For some people, these questions feel almost irresponsible. Wanting something for yourself can trigger guilt when others are struggling. Rest can feel like negligence. Pleasure can seem wasteful. Even an empty afternoon may produce anxiety because your nervous system has become accustomed to responding. You check your phone. You review the list. You search for the next problem before the next problem finds you. And here is the question at the center of all of this. Are you carrying everyone because you trust your own strength, or because you never learned that someone else might carry you? Do you help because it reflects your values, or because guilt and fear make refusal feel impossible? Do you genuinely prefer independence? Or did you learn not to expect support? The answer may not be one or the other. It may be both. You can be resilient and afraid, loving and resentful, generous and controlling, confident in your abilities while deeply uncomfortable with dependence. Human motivations are rarely pure. The goal is not to condemn the part of you that learned how to survive by becoming capable. That part may have built your career, protected your family, and carried you through situations other people never fully understood. The goal is to notice when a strength has become automatic. A small shift might begin before the next immediate yes. When someone brings you a problem, pause long enough to ask, is this actually mine to solve? Not, could I solve it? You probably could. Ask whether solving all of it is truly your responsibility. Maybe your role is to listen rather than rescue. Maybe it is to help with one phone call, not take over the entire situation. Maybe it is to tell a sibling clearly and specifically what task they need to handle. Maybe it is to tell your adult child, this is what I can offer, and this is what I can't. And then tolerate the discomfort that follows, because boundaries do not always feel peaceful when you first create them. They may feel like guilt. They may feel like you are disappointing people. They may feel like you are becoming less loving. But discomfort is not proof that the boundary is wrong. Sometimes it is simply the sensation of leaving an old role. Return to that grocery store parking lot. The phone rings. Your father has the medical bill. Your daughter needs help with rent. You still care about both of them. You do not become cold. You do not abandon your family. You do not pretend their needs are unimportant. But perhaps this time, strength looks different. You tell your father that you will review the bill tomorrow, not tonight. You ask your brother to call the insurance company. You listen to your daughter without immediately reaching for your bank account. You ask what she has already tried and what kind of help she believes would make a lasting difference. Then you notice your own body before starting the car. The tightness in your jaw. The exhaustion behind your eyes, the part of you that has spent decades saying, I've got it, before checking whether you actually do. Maybe maturity is not proving that you can carry 2 generations without breaking. Maybe it is learning which responsibilities are truly yours, which can be shared, and which belong to people you love but cannot protect from every difficult experience. Your competence is real. Your loyalty is real. Your resilience is real. But none of those qualities require you to disappear. Strength is not only the ability to remain standing while everyone leans on you. Sometimes strength is finally allowing the people around you to discover that you have weight too. If you recognize yourself or the person in your family who always handles everything, share this video and tell us in the comments. When did being responsible become part of your identity?